The night Daniel almost lost everything began with a knock he nearly ignored. It was raining hard, the kind of rain that soaks through shoes and settles into your bones. Daniel sat at the small kitchen table of his rundown apartment, staring at a final notice from the power company. A single dad with a past that followed him like a shadow, he had learned not to expect help, only consequences. Tomorrow morning, he was scheduled to stand in court, facing a judge who would decide whether he kept custody of his young son or lost him forever. Then came the knock. When Daniel opened the door, two little girls stood in the hallway, soaked and trembling. Twins, maybe 8 years old, holding hands so tightly their knuckles were white. One of them spoke in a shaking voice, "Sir, our car broke down, our phone died, we don't know where to go." Daniel hesitated. He had every reason to. He barely had food for his own child, and trusting strangers had never worked out well for him. But when he saw the fear in their eyes, the same fear he'd seen in his son's during harder night, something in him softened. "Come inside," he said quietly, "you're freezing." He gave them dry towels, made grilled cheese with the last slices of bread he had, and let them sit near the heater that barely worked. They told him their father was late picking them up, that their car stopped on the highway, that they tried walking until the rain scared them. Daniel wrapped them in his son's old hoodies and told them everything would be okay, even though he wasn't sure things would ever be okay for himself. Hours later, red and blue lights washed over the walls. Police officers knocked, followed by a man in a dark coat, his face tight with panic. Until he saw the girls, he rushed forward, dropping to his knees, pulling them into his arms. "I've been looking everywhere," he whispered, his voice breaking. One of the officers turned to Daniel. "Sir, do you know who this is?" Daniel shook his head. The man stood, wiping his eyes. "I'm Judge Michael Hayes." The name hit Daniel like a punch to the chest. Judge Hayes. The same man who would be deciding his case in the morning, the same man who held his future in his hands. Daniel's heart sank. He suddenly saw his kindness through a harsher lens. Had he done enough? Had he done something wrong? His past mistakes came rushing back, and for the first time that night, fear replaced compassion. The judge looked around the small apartment. The peeling paint, the thin blankets, the boy asleep on the couch, clutching a worn teddy bear. "You fed them," the judge said softly. "You kept them safe." Daniel nodded. Anyone would have done the same. The judge met his eyes. Not everyone does. The next morning, Daniel stood in court, hands shaking, his son's future hanging by a thread. Judge Hayes listened carefully as lawyers spoke, as records were read, as Daniel's past was laid bare. Then the judge leaned forward. "Last night," he said, "my daughters were scared, cold, and vulnerable. A man with very little still chose to give them warmth, food, and safety. That tells me more about his character than any report ever could." The courtroom fell silent. "I believe this father deserves the chance to keep his family," the judge concluded. When it was over, Daniel hugged his son so tightly the boy laughed through happy tears. As Daniel walked out of the courthouse, sunlight breaking through the clouds, he realized something powerful. Kindness doesn't ask who someone is. Compassion doesn't wait for reward. And humanity, even in its quietest moments, has a way of coming back to us when we need it most. Because in a world that often feels cold and unforgiving, kindness still matters. And sometimes it can change everything.